Welcome back to DFC Books. Today, we are embarking on what is, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, arguably the most foundational narrative dive in human history. We're reaching back nearly 4 millennia.
Right into the very beginnings of literature itself. It's an incredible thought.
It really is.
Indeed. Today we're opening up the clay archive, so to speak, to unpack the Epic of Gilgamesh. And our mission, it's simple, but it's also, I think, quite profound. To treat this ancient text not just as some dusty historical relic, but as a masterpiece that offers these incredibly relevant insights into, the human condition.
And kingship, the nature of power.
The nature of power, and centrally, the universal fear of death. We're going to be using the comprehensive new translations and the context provided in our sources to guide us through it all.
And when we say deep dive, we really mean you are getting the full granular treatment today. We're going to provide a detailed explanation of the text, focusing really intensively on the main characters and breaking down the single most important event that drives the plot forward across each of the 11 tablets of the standard version.
It's your shortcut, basically.
Exactly. Your shortcut to mastering the oldest story ever told.
So we should probably begin by acknowledging the magnificent kind of dual identity of this epic in the ancient world.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, the standard Babylonian version, which is the one we largely attribute to the scribe Sinliku-Nini, is known by this very reflective title, He Who Saw the Deep.
Which refers to profound knowledge.
Exactly. But the older, more heroic traditions, they carried a different title, surpassing all other kings.
That contrast is it's essential, isn't it? It perfectly encapsulates the hero's entire arc.
It really does.
He begins as this invincible, almost arrogant, surpassing all other kings demigod. Yet his whole journey is this humiliating, fearful, transformative experience that ends with him as the sage.
He becomes he who saw the deep.
He trades that raw power for some very painful wisdom.
Precisely. And that shift is the core identity of the epic. It's presented fundamentally as a path to wisdom, a foundational document of ancient humanism, you could almost say.
Humanism, that's a strong word for something so ancient.
But it fits. Its ultimate purpose is to urge the acceptance of human limitations. Gilgamesh's failure to achieve physical, eternal life is paradoxically the necessary crucible for him to gain true, lasting wisdom.
The wisdom he needs to be a real king.
The wisdom required to restore and define order in his city, Uruk.
All right, let's start by grounding ourselves in the world that produced this story. I mean, when we talk about the epic, we're dealing with fragmented pieces unearthed from the desert. Can you detail the source material we're actually relying on?
Yeah, the epic's survival is it's a testament to the durability of inscribed clay. It's just amazing. It comes from these buried clay tablets, cuneiform, script recovered from various sites all across Mesopotamia. The foundational material is built upon layers of tradition spanning both Akkadian and older Sumerian traditions.
That's where the hero's called Bilgames, right?
That's him, Bilgames. The standard version, which is the comprehensive compilation we're analyzing today, is told over 11 tablets. It was compiled and standardized from these older, much more fragmentary sources dating back to the 3rd and 2nd millennia BC.
And what's so fascinating is that Gilgamesh wasn't just some local hero limited to Uruk or even Mesopotamia.
Oh, far from it. This story was truly international. It acted as a massive cultural export across the ancient West.
Really? Where else have we found it?
We have found fragments in both Hittite and Hurrian versions, among others. This just shows how universally resonant the core narrative was.
The super king trying to cheat fate.
And understand mortality, yeah. The material spans vast distances, reflecting its enduring popularity and its adaptability across all these different cultures.
Before we delve into his tyranny, let's highlight the brilliant framing device the poet uses. The prologue itself, He Who Saw the Deep, it effectively gives away the ending, which seems a little counterintuitive for an adventure story.
It does, but it's a deliberate and really sophisticated move.
Mm-hmm.
The very first lines introduce Gilgamesh as someone who has already completed the journey.
He says, He who saw the deep, the country's foundation, and learned of everything the sum of wisdom.
Exactly. This tells the listener right from the get-go that the story to follow is a didactic tale, a gigantic, painful flashback.
So we're basically reading his memoirs.
In a way, yes. We are reading the text that Gilgamesh, now wise, reconciled to his mortality and returned to Uruk, inscribed onto permanent stone tablets. The epic is less about the action itself and more about the wisdom achieved through the suffering of that action.
Okay, so if the wisdom is acquired, then the journey must have been driven by some pretty fundamental human questions. What was the philosophical engine of this story?
The central existential engine is, without question, the fear of death and the quest for immortality.
That's the big one.
It's the big one. The entire second half of the epic is just a desperate psychological flight from mortality after his best friend, Enkidu, dies. The poem demands an answer to the question, what is the proper duty of man when the gods decreed death for humans but reserved eternal life for themselves?
And Gilgamesh just can't accept that.
He can't. His quest is his ultimate failure to accept this divine allocation of fates.
And intertwined with that is this rigorous examination of power. I mean, we celebrate Gilgamesh as a culture hero, but he starts as a king whose definition of power is entirely self-serving and, frankly, destructive.
Absolutely. He begins as a cruel tyrant, the very epitome of unchecked power. The epic really debates the proper duties of a king by presenting Gilgamesh initially as an immature youth capable of anything and accepting no check.
All that superhuman energy.
Which should be channeled into protection, is instead destructive and oppressive. The sources are very specific about the severity of his tyranny. He displaces both filial and conjugal duties, letting no son go free to his father and no daughter go free to her mother.
That abuse of women is one of the key catalysts for the gods creating Enkidu, isn't it? The most shocking detail is his exercise of droit de seigneur, the right to the first night.
It's the ultimate expression of his tyranny.
He takes maidens on their wedding night.
He does, and this is more than just personal cruelty. It's an act that fundamentally destabilizes the entire social fabric of Uruk. The whole population is thrown into chaos. Fathers are enraged, family units are destroyed.
So the people cry out.
Their cry of distress to the gods is what finally prompts the creation of a physical equal, Enkidu, who is meant to divert this destructive energy. His initial state is necessary to make his final enlightened state truly meaningful.
But even though he fails to achieve, biological immortality, he does achieve something lasting that his people can celebrate.
Yes, he achieves the immortality of fame. The poem posits that since eternal physical life is permanently denied to humanity, enduring fame through monumental civilized achievement is the only real alternative.
And that's the wall.
That's the wall. Gilgamesh's final, profoundly important act is not a battle or some magic trick, but showing the magnificent rampart of Urk the sheepfold to Ur-Shanabi the ferryman.
The same walls that were built through the conscripted labor of his tyranny.
The very same. By the end, they become the symbol of his acceptance and his lasting concrete legacy. The walls transcend him.
The sources also strongly link the epic not just to heroism, but to ancient wisdom literature. It's teaching a lesson.
It is deeply didactic, yeah. It shares characteristics with what we call royal council literature, like the older Sumerian instructions of Shurpak. The core message is relentless and clear. The pursuit of immortality is folly.
So what's the alternative?
The proper duty of man is to accept the mortal life that is his lot and enjoy it to the full, focusing on family and community. Gilgamesh's journey is a necessary failure to prove this fundamental truth. He had to attempt to conquer death to truly understand the value of mortal life.
Okay, let's shift our focus to the people who populate this epic, starting with the protagonist himself. Gilgamesh is 2/3 god, 1/3 man. How does that ratio inform his actions and his identity?
Gilgamesh's identity is defined by that internal tension. It's everything. He's a legendary king of Uruk, son of the goddess Ninsun, known as the Wild Cow.
A great name.
It is. And his father is the deified king Lugo-Banda, who functions as his special protector. Physically, he's described as heroic in stature, brave scion of Uruk, wild bull on the rampage.
The wild bull imagery is key, isn't it?
It is. It signifies this raw, superhuman power that, when it's untamed, can only be destructive. This divine nature makes him incapable of truly understanding the limits of mortality until Enkidu dies.
We discussed his initial flaw, the cruelty. But how does his transformation manifest physically and emotionally after the shock of Enkidu's death?
Oh, the transformation is immediate, and it's devastating. He is driven by this paralyzing grief and sheer terror of the void, and he sheds his kingly, divine garments. He takes off all the finery.
And puts on what?
He assumes the rough, ragged skin of a lion in mourning. This is a dramatic symbolic shift. He chooses the attire of the wild man, rejecting civilization and his royal duty.
So his journey is a literal and figurative regression.
It is. It's a transition from the immature youth to a desperate wanderer, which ultimately leads him back to Uruk as a wise king who has fully accepted the reality of human mortality, but only after exhausting every single possible alternative.
And there's a delicious irony in his destiny that we can't overlook, which kind of proves the gods were always a step ahead of him.
Absolutely. The ultimate irony is that while he so violently failed to become a god in life, his destiny, which was foretold by his mother Ninsun, is to become a governor and judge of the shades in the netherworld.
So he gets a job in the afterlife.
He gets a job ruling alongside Ningirjida and Dumuzi. He gains a form of eternal status, but only after death and only as a servant of the divine order, not as the glorious conqueror he wished to be. He gets a permanent position, not eternal life.
Now, to Enkidu, the man who brings him to heel and then breaks his heart,
Mm.
he is created specifically to be Gilgamesh's physical equal, but his narrative arc is really about becoming human.
Enkidu is the perfect foil. He's created by the mother goddess Eru from a pinch of clay in the wild, specifically to draw off Gilgamesh's excess energy. And initially, he is pure nature.
Coated in hair like the god of the animal.
Exactly, grazing innocently with gazelles and wild asses, defending them from predators. He lacks any self-awareness or reason. He is simply an animal force.
The process of his civilization is a central, pivotal moment in the entire epic. What are the steps to his humanity?
It is this profound ritualistic transformation that really defines what humanity meant in Mesopotamian terms. He's lured by a hunter who reports his existence, and then he's civilized by the temple prostitute, Shamhat.
And the key is the 7 days and 7 nights they spend together.
That is the pivotal moment. It's described as the moment he sheds his bestial nature. Afterwards, he is physically weakened. He can no longer run with the gazelles, but he gains reason and wide understanding.
So he trades physical prowess for intellect.
He does, and the transformation is completed when he accepts human social markers. He's groomed, he's oiled, he's clothed, and he eats bread and ale for the first time. He puts on a garment and takes up a weapon to fight lions, transitioning from a creature of the wild to a protector of civilized society. He becomes the shepherd's watchman.
Once civilized, he marches into Uruk to challenge Gilgamesh. And that friendship is the defining relationship of the first half of the epic.
Oh, it's forged in fire. After hearing of Gilgamesh's oppressive behavior, Enkidu confronts him at the threshold of the wedding house, initiating this tremendous wrestling match.
And the sources say the building itself shook.
Door jambs shook, the wall did shudder. The result is either a draw or, more symbolically, Enkidu acknowledging Gilgamesh's divine destiny as king. Regardless, their strength is matched, their mutual respect is instantaneous, and their bond becomes unbreakable.
But that bond is what gets them into trouble.
That bond is what invites divine jealousy, absolutely.
And the god's decree of his death is the catalyst that completely explodes Gilgamesh's world.
It is the ultimate punishment. Enlil, the god of earth, wind, and storms, is enraged by their joint defiance. Enkidu is doomed to die young because he participated in 2 major transgressions against the divine order, the killing of Humbaba and the killing of the Bull of Heaven.
So his death is a message.
It's the final proof that human power, no matter how great, cannot overcome the fate decreed by the divine council.
Let's quickly look at the powerful divine supporting cast, starting with the goddess who causes so much trouble, Ishtar.
Ishtar, the Babylonian Venus, is a massive force of nature. She's the impetuous goddess of both sexual love and war, and she's the resident deity of Uruk.
And her defining trait is what?
Her extreme volatility and, as the source notes, her inexhaustible appetite for both. Her rejection by Gilgamesh in Tablet 6 is not just a romantic snub, it's an open act of defiance against the divine order and a direct insult to her status.
Which she does not take well.
Not at all. She responds with immediate and catastrophic vengeance by unleashing the Bull of Heaven.
On the supportive side, though, Gilgamesh has his mother, Ninsun, the goddess who advocates for him.
Ninsun, the wild cow, is crucial as a concerned mediating figure. In Tablet 3, she plays the role of the wise divine mother. She accepts Gilgamesh's ambition, but she prays specifically to the sun god Shamash, who is Gilgamesh's protector, to ensure divine aid for her son's safety.
And she also adopts Enkidu.
She ritually adopts him, yes, bonding him to her family through a spiritual ceremony before they depart for the dangerous quest to the cedar forest. She's trying to manage the divine consequences of her son's arrogance.
And Humbaba, or Huwawawaya, is killing him such a terrible transgression. I mean, he is described as an ogre.
He is, but Humbaba is the fearsome guardian of the sacred forest of cedar, and he was explicitly appointed by Enlil. He's not just some random monster, he is a manifestation of Enlil's established ecological and political order.
And he's protected by these 7 numinous auras. What are those?
They're essentially 7 terrifying, radiating spiritual layers of protection that have to be stripped away before he can be physically defeated. His death and the subsequent felling of the sacred trees is a desecration and an act of extreme hubris against the highest divine authority.
It's the beginning of the end for Enkidu.
It absolutely is.
So then we move to the man Libby. Gilgamesh risks everything to find Utnapishtim.
Utnapishtim, the distant. He is the key to the entire second half of the epic. He is the only human ever granted immortality, and he lives far, far away at the edge of the world.
He's the flood survivor.
He is. He survived the Great Deluge, sent by Enlil, a story he narrates in full, and as a result, he holds the secret of the gods regarding life and death. He is the dispenser of the ultimate humbling wisdom that Gilgamesh so desperately needs to hear.
And finally, the man who gets Gilgamesh there, the ferryman. Let's clarify what Urshanabi's role is and what exactly Gilgamesh destroys.
Right, Urshanabi, or Sursunabu, is the ferryman across the lethal waters of death to Utnapishtim's island. And these waters, they're instantly fatal to mortals.
So how does he cross?
The sources confirm that Urshanabi relies on a crucial mechanism for safe passage. The Stone Ones, which are his crew. These were not men, but magical protected beings or perhaps physical amulets that deflected the poisonous nature of the waters.
And Gilgamesh, in a fit of rage,
In a moment of impatience, still acting like the pre-wisdom tyrant, he smashes these Stone Ones to pieces.
so his own violence is completely counterproductive right before he reaches his goal.
Precisely. His impulse to violence destroys the very means of safe travel, forcing Gilgamesh and Urshanabi to undertake this immensely difficult, laborious task. They have to cut 300 massive punting poles just to push the boat across the deadly waters without touching them. This act of self-sabotage perfectly illustrates Gilgamesh's continuing folly right up until the moment he meets Utnapishtim.
All right, now we execute the core of this deep dive. We're walking through the standard version, tablet by tablet, detailing the most significant event in each, which directly shapes Gilgamesh's journey from tyrant to sage.
Let's do it. We begin with Tablet 1, the coming of Enkidu. The key event, as we've noted, is the creation and subsequent civilization of Enkidu.
And this is the direct result of the people's complaints about Gilgamesh's tyranny.
Exactly. The mother goddess creates Enkidu in the wild, covered in hair. The transition begins when the hunter introduces him to Shamhat. After their ritualistic week of coupling, the fundamental change is set. Enkidu loses his animal innocence, but gains the faculty for complex thought, reason, and social understanding.
He's ready to go to the city.
He is ready to enter civilization and meet his rival.
That sets the stage perfectly for Tablet 2, the champion and the friend.
The most important event here is the epic wrestling match that solidifies their friendship and hierarchy. Enkidu, now fully groomed and clothed, enters the city of Uruk. He is immediately outraged by Gilgamesh's oppressive practice of the droit de seigneur.
The right of the first night.
And he blocks the entrance to the wedding house. The fight is earth-shaking, just showcasing the immense power of both figures. Though the conflict is fierce, it ends in mutual respect, with Enkidu acknowledging Gilgamesh's divine supremacy as the destined king.
And just like that, they become firm friends.
Instantly, they realize their combined strength can be channeled toward heroic deeds.
And the heroes decide to redirect their energy away from Uruk and toward seeking glory, which brings us to Tablet the Third, Council and Preparation.
The key event here is the ritual adoption of Enkidu by Ninsun and her prayer to Shamash. Gilgamesh, who is, bored with peace and eager for eternal fame, insists on this dangerous expedition to the cedar forest to kill Humbaba.
And the elders try to talk him out of it.
They do. The elders of Uruk counsel Gilgamesh against it, warning him of the sacrilege and the danger. Ninsun, recognizing her son's ambition is unstoppable, performs the ritual adoption of Enkidu, binding him spiritually to the family, and then appeals directly to Shamash to protect them. She's setting the divine stage for their journey.
Tablet 4. The journey in dreams really emphasizes the scale of their trek and the hero's reliance on divine communication.
The core of this tablet is the series of prophetic dreams experienced by Gilgamesh, coupled with Shamash's active encouragement. The journey across the mountains is incredibly arduous. Gilgamesh is terrified and repeatedly experiences these terrifying symbolic dreams.
Like fighting mountains or massive bulls.
Exactly. And Enkidu bravely interprets them, transforming them from bad omens into signs of eventual victory. Most critically, the sun god, Shamash, openly encourages their mission, promising to aid them with winds and protection against Humbaba.
So they have a powerful ally in the heavens.
They do, which confirms that their transgression has at least one powerful divine supporter.
Their youthful heroism and subsequent sacrilege then culminate in Tablet V, the slaying of Humbaba.
The key event is the defeat and killing of Humbaba against the latter's pleas for mercy. Humbaba is terrifying, protected by those 7 numinous auras we talked about. Gilgamesh really struggles to overcome him.
And Shamash has to step in.
Shamash intervenes with the promised 13 winds, which immobilize Humbaba by pinning him against the ground. When Humbaba, now defeated, begs Gilgamesh for clemency, it's Enkidu, the newly civilized man, who shows no mercy.
Why?
He warns Gilgamesh that sparing Humbaba would prevent their safe return and invite even greater vengeance from Enlil. So Gilgamesh strikes him down. They then proceed to fell the greatest cedars, completing the desecration of the sacred groves and guaranteeing a reckoning.
And the gods don't wait long for their revenge, but the heroes manage one last magnificent act of defiance in Tablet VI, Ishtar and the Bull of Heaven.
The critical moment here is Gilgamesh's devastating, detailed rejection of Ishtar's marriage proposal. Immediately upon his return, Gilgamesh's arrogance is at its absolute peak. When Ishtar asks for his hand, Gilgamesh launches into this stunning catalog of insults.
He lists all her failed past relationships.
Every single one. The terrible fate suffered by all her previous lovers, from the shepherd Dumuzi, condemned to the netherworld, to the garden worker Ishilanu, whom she cursed and turned into a blind mole. It's a profound and very public humiliation of a major deity.
And her reaction is instantaneous, leading to chaos in Uruk.
She storms heaven, demanding that Anu, the sky god, unleash the monstrous bull of heaven, the Taurus constellation, upon Uruk. The heroes manage to kill the bull, and Enkidu's hubris reaches its zenith when he tears off the bull's haunch and hurls it in a final act of utter scorn at Ishtar, who's weeping on the city walls.
That's the last straw.
Killing Enlil's guardian and humiliating Ishtar's bull, that double sacrilege is the final straw.
Which brings us to the tragedy of Tablet VII, Enkidu's illness and netherworld vision.
The key event here is the divine assembly sentencing Enkidu to death, followed by his detailed vision of the Mesopotamian afterlife. The gods decree that one of the heroes must perish. Enlil decrees Enkidu's fate.
And Enkidu regrets his entire life.
As he lies dying, he curses the hunter and Shamhat for bringing him to civilization, because civilization led to his heroic acts, which in turn led to his punishment. Shamash has to intervene, forcing Enkidu to retract the curse on Shamhat and replace it with a blessing.
But the truly critical moment in this tablet, for our understanding of ancient cosmology, is the netherworld vision he describes. What does Enkidu see?
This vision is one of the most foundational texts we have detailing Mesopotamian cosmology. Enkidu sees the House of Dust, the gloomy subterranean netherworld, which is the fate of all humanity.
It's bleak.
Horrifyingly bleak. He describes it as dark, where dust is their sustenance and clay is their food, where the shades, the dead wear feathers like birds. It is a place ruled by the stern queen Ereshkigal. He witnesses the hierarchy of the dead, seeing kings reduced to servants, grinding food for the goddess. The vision is terrifying, a place of perpetual gloom and servitude, which immediately instills in Gilgamesh the profound, paralyzing fear of becoming that same clay.
And this fear fuels Tablet 8, the lament and funeral, where Gilgamesh's grief takes on these gigantic kingly dimensions.
The important event here is Gilgamesh's vast, ritualized lamentation for Enkidu and the preparation of magnificent grave goods. Gilgamesh mourns for 7 days and 7 nights, refusing to accept the death. His words encapsulate his new, terrible fear. Shall I not be like him, and also lie down, never to rise again through all eternity?
So he commissions a huge statue.
A monumental gold and jewel-encrusted funerary statue of his friend. And crucially, he provides lavish offerings. Gems, gold, daggers, intended as ritual bribes or gifts to placate the powerful deities of the netherworld.
To make sure his friend is okay.
To ensure his friend's gentle treatment in the land of the dead, yes. His mourning leads him to strip his royal garments, assume the lion's skin, and abandon Uruk entirely.
Driven by the terror of becoming dust, his quest begins in Tablet 9x, the Wanderings of Fear.
The key event is Gilgamesh's encounter with the Scorpion Man and his wife, who guard the twin mountains of Mashu. This is the physical and psychological demarcation of his journey. He is now beyond the known world, seeking the path of the sun itself.
And it's a dangerous path.
Incredibly, he crosses vast, dangerous territory, slaying the wild lions he once hunted with Enkidu. The Scorpion Man tries to dissuade him, detailing the absolute blinding darkness of the passage that extends for 12 double hours, so 24 hours. But Gilgamesh's desperation overrides his fear, and he is allowed to pass, racing the sun god Shamash through the dense, crushing dark.
He finally reaches the edge of the world in Tablet X, Wisdom at the World's Edge, where he gets 2 chances for wisdom and he fails the first test utterly.
The most crucial event is the wise goddess Shaduri's advice and Gilgamesh's destructive encounter with the ferryman Urshanabi. Gilgamesh, ragged and desperate, first encounters Shaduri, the tavern keeper, who runs a bar at the edge of the cosmic ocean.
And she gives him the answer he needs, but not the one he wants.
Exactly. She urges him to abandon the futile quest and embrace carpe diem. Eat, drink, be merry, put on clean clothes, and cherish your wife and children. Gilgamesh refuses, still obsessed with the death. He finds Urshanabi, and in a fit of rage, he destroys the magical stone ones, the means of crossing the lethal waters safely.
A huge mistake.
A monumental one. This single act forces him to laboriously cut 300 punting poles, demonstrating that his heroic might still translates into stubborn folly, even this close to his goal.
After all that labor, he finally meets the immortal Utnapishti. This leads to Tablet 11. Immortality denied, the definitive climax.
The critical events are Gilgamesh's failure to overcome sleep and the loss of the plant of rejuvenation to the snake. First, Utnapishti narrates the comprehensive story of the deluge, the secret of the gods. Then, to prove Gilgamesh's fundamental mortal weakness, Utnapishti challenges him to stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights.
Arguing that if he can't beat sleep, he can't beat death.
Right, and Gilgamesh fails miserably. He falls asleep instantly.
And the plant is the final, agonizing insult to his quest, isn't it? Yeah.
It is the ultimate irony of his toil. As a final consolation, Utnapishti reveals the location of the plant of rejuvenation, a thorny plant that makes old men young again. Gilgamesh successfully retrieves it, but decides to test it back in Uruk.
Yeah.
While bathing in a cool well, a snake, smelling the sweetness of the plant, steals it and eats it immediately, shedding its skin in the process. This, the text implies, is the mythic origin of why snakes shed their skin. They are the inheritors of the rejuvenation Gilgamesh sought.
He's left with nothing.
He's left weeping, realizing the absolute futility of his entire journey. He returns to Uruk, defeated, and shows Urshanabi the magnificent walls, finally accepting that his legacy, not his biological life, is his true immortality.
Wow. That deep dive confirms the complexity of Gilgamesh's growing up. He started believing his divine nature meant he could overturn the universe, but he learned that death is the one universal truth.
He learned that death was not a fate imposed by some single vengeful deity, but the immutable destiny fixed by the great gods. The destiny maker, Memetum, established both death and life simultaneously, but purposefully withheld knowledge of the day of death.
So Gilgamesh's quest was, in a way, necessary.
It was necessary to prove that the pursuit of that kind of transcendence was hubris.
But the wisdom he brings back is more than just a personal acceptance. It has massive institutional consequences for Uruk.
Absolutely. His final success is political and cultural, not personal. The sources confirm that Gilgamesh's post-journey achievement was restoring the cult centers that had been destroyed by the deluge and setting rituals in place. All the wisdom he brought back from the flood survivor, Utnapishti.
He becomes a true culture hero.
He does. Restoring this antediluvian perfection to the way society and governance should be run, he transitioned from being the city's tormentor to its wise, defining patron.
He started by building walls through forced tyrannical toil, and he ends by showing those same walls as a symbol of an enduring civilized legacy that protects his people and honors their ancestors. It's perfect narrative closure.
It is the moment he finally fulfills his duty as a wise king. So let's leave you with this provocative final thought. The epic is often described as being more about what it is to be a man, a mortal, than what it is to serve the gods. Given Gilgamesh's spectacular failure to conquer death, yet his ultimate success in establishing an enduring legacy and even gaining a role as a divine judge of the dead, does true wisdom lie in accepting human limitations and embracing the ephemeral joys of mortal life, as Shaduri urged? Or is the effort to strive for transcendence through monumental fame itself the most essential, defining human quality? What will be your immortal achievement?
A profound question to mull over. We hope this deep dive into the Epic of Gilgamesh has given you a monumental new understanding of this ancient text. Thanks for joining us.